There are disappointing losses, and then there's that. I'm breaking down my top takeaways from the Bills' loss to the Texans today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of Go Bills and Buffalo's Run, also the co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. Well, folks, the Buffalo Bills fell 23-20 to the Houston Texans, and their record now sits at 3-2. 3 wins to start the year, 2 losses over the last 2 weeks. 3-2 through 5 games. We have to start with the end of this game, and then we can talk more about how we got there. And this is now the second week in a row where I'm not going to stick to my normal post-game reaction where I talk about things I liked, things I didn't like. I think there are too many things to get into to frame it like that. And so I want to get into some really big topics that are heavily on my mind as a result of this football game and how this happened. And I actually have a lot less written down than I typically do. So I'm very interested to see how this comes together. But the end of game, I mean, just really disappointing. Just very poorly managed. The Bills are down 3 scores in this football game in the second half. They find a way and come back. And you just don't give your team a reasonable opportunity at the end. And it starts with the Dawuane Smoot strip sack. That was a big moment. You take possession, 4:21 left in the game, down 3 points at the Houston 15. 3 points ties it. Obviously, a touchdown, you go ahead. You start at the 15. On first down, you don't get a yard. You run James Cook for no gain. And then 2 incomplete passes, you settle for the field goal, you tie it up. And, of course, the Texans get the ball. They got a chance to go kick a field goal and win the game. C.J. Stroud has the intentional grounding penalty that takes him out of field goal range. They punt the ball to the 3. There's 32 seconds left, and it's a tie ball game. Everyone on the planet is thinking, get this thing to overtime. My message to the subtext subscribers was, quote, they have 3 timeouts. We need to be careful here to get to overtime. And what happened after that is impossible for me to reason with and understand and make sense of. They throw it 3 times in a row, deep and down the field. Your passing game had nothing all day long. This was the opportunity. This was the moment where you decide to air it out and you don't have any timeouts. The objective there was that you did need to get a first down. Like, you had to get a first down there, or else you were playing with fire. But along the way, you want to talk about accomplishing nothing in terms of not forcing them to use any of their timeouts and throwing the ball 3 very low percentage throws down the field. I don't know what the thought process was. Did you think if you threw the ball down the field that it would take a lot of time off the clock because the ball's in the air, and that way when you punt the ball, they don't have as much time? I can't even understand it. There's no explanation that would make sense to me. Run 3 efficient plays and get to overtime. It's an indefensible sequence managed by Sean McDermott. It's indefensible. And listening to him after the game, he said, I take full responsibility. We need to be more efficient. Boy, talk about spoiling one heck of an effort by your football team to come back from being down 3 scores in the second half. And that's what you did. You thought that was your best chance to win the football game, was to do that? I understand the necessity to get a first down. They had 3 timeouts. They have a good kicker. Like, there was a path for them to get that scenario one way or another. But your best way to get a first down was surely not launching the ball 3 times down the field when you had 4 catches by your receivers in the entire game on 18 targets. Boy, that's tough to reconcile. Not tough, impossible to reconcile. That's just bad. That's bad. I expect a whole lot more from a head coach in his 8th season, especially given some of the end of game sequences that have existed throughout his tenure that we've had to live through. Felt like I was watching the Broncos game. Take me back to 13 seconds, why don't you? It's tough. It's not doing the right thing. Completely mismanaging an opportunity. And maybe the Bills lose anyway, right? Maybe the Bills get to overtime and lose the game. Can we at least find out? Do you really feel like that was your best opportunity to give your team a chance to win the football game? No way. No way. Bad process, bad result. Bills fall to 3-2. And I will get into how we got there. That's coming up next. We'll talk about everything that went wrong that made this game what it was. And there's plenty to dive into, but to have the opportunity that you did, and then not because they did anything, not because they executed something amazing, but because you just very poorly managed the opportunity, you didn't give yourself a chance to win the football game. That's tough to reconcile. That's tough to reconcile. Impossible, actually. I can't make sense of it for you. I know that a lot of you come to this podcast for me to make sense of things for you. The way that Sean McDermott chose to manage that end of game sequence is not something I can explain to you. And I'm not going to try to, other than let you know that I'm disappointed and that he very clearly didn't give the Buffalo Bills their best opportunity to win that game at the end. All right, we'll focus all the way the rest of this podcast on more how we got there. I got plenty to say about the offense and the defense, so be sure to stick with me. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right tools for your team to find the right professionals faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job but might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't even visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. So hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. What's something that scares you? Do you have a fear, no matter big or small? Halloween lets us have fun with what scares us, but what about those fears that don't involve zombies and ghosts? Because sometimes the scariest thing is not facing our fears in the first place and holding ourselves back. If you're thinking of starting therapy, be sure to give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. All you do is fill out a brief questionnaire. That'll get you matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Overcome your fears with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, let's talk about more than just the end of game sequence, because there's a lot more to this football game than just that. And I want to talk about one high, middle of the field, closed coverage. That's what Houston runs. That's what they ran. Their defensive structure exposed a big problem with the Buffalo Bills offense. Let me explain. Defense is either aligned one of two ways. 2 high safeties, middle of the field open, or 1 high safety, middle of the field closed. When a team runs 1 high, middle of the field closed, like Houston does, they ran it the 5th highest percentage of the time in the NFL going into this game. And I'm pretty sure they ran it for a lot of the game against Buffalo. That makes it very difficult to work the ball to the middle of the field, and it invites throws to the perimeter, right? That's what you're supposed to do if you play quarterback. You get 1 high safety in the middle of the field is closed, you throw the ball outside the numbers. And so what does that mean has to happen? Wide receivers have to win one-on-one matchups. Could the Bills receivers do that? No, they couldn't do it. Bills wide receivers in this game were targeted 18 times. They had 4 catches, with one of them being a negative 1-yard reception for Curtis Samuel. They couldn't win one-on-one on the perimeter. And so you want to do that, or there's other ways you can be cover one. You have outbreaking patterns as well. That is very helpful. It wasn't hard to figure out what Houston was going to be defensively. They were what they were all season long. I mean, I'm watching high leverage downs in this football game, and it's Marquez Valdes-Scantling against Derek Stingley, your 5th receiver against their number 1 corner, and you expected MVS to win a stop route, win leverage, catch the ball, and get a first down. I mean, if that wasn't a microcosm of that game, I don't know what to tell you. Keon Coleman, Mack Hollins, these are the guys you're counting on to win these one-on-one battles on the outside. And they can't do it. They can't win those battles. So what does Josh Allen have to do? He has to hold on to the ball, buy some more time, and then what happens? Things get chaotic. And then Houston does what they do. They send pressure, right? They're 50%, they're top 10 in the NFL in blitz rate. They did what they do. And you don't have the answers because you don't have the wide receiver talent to win on the outside. It was exactly the defensive structure the Bills were supposed to get in this game. Allen goes 9 of 30 for 131 yards. 9 of 30. Some of that's on Josh Allen. A lot of that's on the receivers. A lot of that's on the game plan. A lot of that's on the play calling. It's not just one thing, but there's a lot baked into a crap game like that from Josh Allen. And it starts with your wide receiver talent on the outside couldn't win. And you made a calculated choice that this was this type of offense that you were going to have. Everybody eats. Well, nobody ate in that game, right? Everybody's still hungry, I'll tell you that. And you watch football long enough, you start to ask yourself questions. Okay, is this a talent issue? Is this a coaching issue? Yeah, there's yeses to all of it, but I think the leading factor is that you just didn't have the wide receiver talent to win one-on-one battles on the perimeter. And this is what you get. Josh Allen holds the ball. They send pressure. Things get chaotic. It's bad. And then when they do send pressure, I mean, the Bills look like clowns. And everybody wants to make pass protection an offensive line thing. And yes, of course it is, but there's so much more to dealing with pressure than just your front 5 on the offensive line. I think the Bills' offensive line was fine in this game in terms of pass protection. You have situations where you see the pressure. There's no hot route. Josh Allen's not seeing the free runner and getting the ball out. They're not handling that well. And that extends more than the offensive line. You have to have guys understand where that pressure's coming from, make themselves available quick. You can't see blitzers going and not cut off your route. And Josh Allen sit back there and just wait for it. Like, it's bad structure. The Bills continue to not have the right plans to beat pressure. This Curtis Samuel stuff is ridiculous. I mean, so let's talk about this. Khalil Shakir, not available for this game. That's the number 1 receiver. So we can have the conversation about, do the Bills need a number 1 receiver? Sure, yeah, all right, yes, I'm with you. I want more wide receiver talent. But Khalil Shakir is that guy for the Bills, right? He's the most targeted, the most catches, the most yards, the most touchdowns this year. That's the go-to guy in this offense. It certainly hurts that he's not available for a game like this. And I think that's where you get more of your results on in-breaking patterns, and you give them something a little bit more to respect in that capacity. But it doesn't change that your guys outside couldn't win one-on-one. But Curtis Samuel, I mean, this is what you brought him in to do this. I mean, Joe Brady had a year with this guy. This isn't a total like onboard this crazy new player that you got to figure him out. I mean, come on, you should know who this player is. This is what you envisioned is just little screens and throwing the ball and asking them to create. That should be part of the menu, but I mean, all we hear about is Curtis Samuel, man coverage and breaking away from it and 4.3 speed, and that he's underutilized down the field and had great options when, great production when he did get chances. What is this? In a game where you needed that, this is what you got out of Curtis Samuel? Is Curtis Samuel just he can't pick up what's going on here? Like, what is it? What is it? This is embarrassing. That's embarrassing what you're getting out of Curtis Samuel. I think play calling was very problematic in this game. Not just like, okay, you're at a deficiency because your receivers can't win in one-on-one where the ball needs to go. But where was the efficient, quick passing game? Why are the Bills so interested suddenly in being this down the field vertical passing game? Why did this happen? You're not built to do that. You don't have down the field wide receiver talent. Why is Josh Allen throwing the ball down the field so often? What happened the first 3 games of the season? Josh Allen taking the short stuff, yards after catch, getting the ball out, the most efficient Josh Allen we've ever seen. All of a sudden, the Bills want to turn into a vertical passing game? What is that? That's not what you are. That's not what you're built to be. And then the first down runs. Hey, it's first down. I promise you the Bills are running it. So your vertical passing, that's ridiculous. Your decisions on when to run, that's ridiculous. Your lack of outbreaking patterns to get the ball out of Josh's hands quicker against this style of defense, it's bad. It's bad. It's 2 games in a row. It's really bad. In terms of your offense and the approach and how you manage the game and all of that. It's just not good. And yes, it is 1,000,000% fair to question if the Bills have enough wide receiver talent right now. I know the hot button name out there is Davante Adams from the Raiders, who's seemingly going to get traded. I'll say this. Sure, I'd love to have Davante Adams. I think that's a very complicated thing, given you'd need to take on $13.5 million in salary, and the Bills don't have that. They don't have the capacity to create that cap space. So that means that the Raiders have to take on a bunch of the contract, which Mark Davis and their cash flow issues with the Raiders, they're not going to do that. And then if they do, you got to pay way more to get the player. I think the more interesting player is Amari Cooper, where the contract is very tradable. And Amari Cooper is a good football player too. But yeah, sure. Go get somebody. Go get somebody that can win one-on-one on the outside and give this offense a chance against these middle of the field close looks. Because this will be the book. This will be the book. It's 2 teams in a row. This is the book. And I don't think that suddenly this crop of receivers is going to win outside. I think they've got some decent players in terms of Khalil Shakir and Kincaid, and when they can be this offense that can actually function within the entirety of the field, right? I think those players can be a nice part of what's going on, but it's tough to watch. It's tough to watch. I mean, that's the answer as to where the offensive rhythm is. Your wide receivers cannot win one-on-one matchups on the perimeter. They can't do it. It's concerning. So that's my offensive rant. A lot of issues. The other thing that I want to bring up here is that even as that the Bills scratched and clawed and got back into this game, right? I've said it multiple times, down 3 scores in the second half, they came back and tied it up. Was it them or was it the Bills? The score was close, but I think the Bills were fortunate to be in this game. They were down 2 scores at halftime. It felt good to be down 2 scores. Then they score a field goal on the opening drive. You're down 3 scores. It's been a bad 8 quarters for the Bills. And maybe this is that lull, right? There's always a lull for the Bills at some point in the season. Maybe they're getting it out of their system right now. But they got smoked by the Ravens, and now this. Did the Bills get back into this game because they started playing well and started executing at a high level, or did some things start to go their way, like a goofy interception by C.J. Stroud, where they were moving the ball? I mean, it was a great play by Terrell Bernard. Don't get me wrong, good instincts. But that was a goofy play by them. A strip sack deep in Houston territory. Good play by Dawuane Smoot, but, I mean, goofy play. Tim settled the defensive holding call. That was huge. Houston defender with the personal foul on Josh. That was huge. It was like their errors were more about what this was. Keon Coleman's touchdown on 4th and 5. Fun play, right? Super fun play. But, I mean, what are you doing, Houston? It felt like even when it went right for the Bills, it wasn't necessarily that it was going right for the Bills. It was just going wrong for them. You get a drive that starts at the plus 49, you get a field goal. You get a drive that starts at the plus 15, you get a field goal. You answer both of Houston touchdown drives with punts. I mean, the Bills got outplayed for sure. Lucky to be in it at the end. Houston's 8 of 16 on 3rd down. They outgained the Bills by, 200 yards? Bills are 3 of 14 on 3rd downs. They're converting 3rd and longs. They're getting out of, I mean, the Bills got a lot of tackles for loss in this game. Didn't matter. Houston just kept getting out of it. You start to ask yourself, okay, what is this Buffalo Bills team? Is this a lull? Can they play better? Are there issues too big to overcome? You know, like, we're going to find out, but it's hard to look at the last 8 quarters of Bills football and reconcile it against the first 3 games and really understand what this team is going to be. I appreciate the fight that they showed, but I'm concerned. All right. On the other side of it, I want to talk more about the defense, recap my predictions, and discuss what's next for the Bills and this podcast. So be sure to stick with me. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Now let's talk a little defense here. I think there's some good things and some bad things for the Bills defense. The 2 touchdown drives were gross. The first one, 6 plays, 70 yards. And really, like, the Bills get them to 3rd and 5 initially. And then they rip off 4 chunk plays in a row to score. It did to the 3rd and 5. They get 38 yards on that little dump down pass to the running back out of the backfield. The Bills got caught in some man coverage looks in this game. Interesting. I mean, I don't think the Bills are really built to be that type of team, and they got caught on a couple of times with that back releasing out of the backfield. 38 yards on that play. Then Nico Collins gets an 11-yard gain when Cole Bishop should have made a tackle for loss. He whiffed on the tackle. And then the Bills get gashed on back-to-back runs where it felt like the defensive tackles, Zion Logue and Dwayne Carter, got blown off the ball, and they were able to get some nice creases and score on, really, it was a 6-play, 70-yard drive, but it really felt to me like a 4-play, 65-yard drive. So I thought in some ways, like, the rookies in those drives, and I get the next drive is 1 play, 67 yards. Nico Collins deep down the field. Bills are running cover 3. Cole Bishop's the deep middle defender. He buzzes down to try to cap an over route, vacates the space he's responsible for behind him, and Rasul Douglas is expecting help on the inside. He doesn't get it, and the Bills give up a long touchdown. It's Cole Bishop's. He's the problem on that play. But for those 2 drives, the rookies really killed the Bills. Cole Bishop in particular, the defensive tackles in particular. And then also, I mean, Cam Lewis is not a rookie, but being able to get some of those matchups, we're able to kind of expose Cam Lewis. So, like, the fill-in players' problems for those drives. Otherwise, I thought the Bills' defense really had some big moments. And yes, some of it was good fortune on Houston mistakes, but I mean, they gave up 23 points and 67 yards of 67 of their 425 yards in one play. I feel like the defense played well enough. Do you wish the pass rush was better? Yeah. Do you wish some of the tackling was better? Sure. Like, I'm with you on that. But this Bills offense had to be better. I think Dorian Williams was another bright spot. He continues to impress me this season. You can feel his presence on every snap, fast, physical, great run defense. Made a play in coverage in this game. Dawuane Smoot with the big strip sack. Good rush against a rookie right tackle. Dwayne Carter did have 2 tackles for loss. I thought he was mostly good outside of that one drive. Rasul Douglas with a couple of tackles for loss. Christian Benford with a tackle for loss. There's some good things that happened. Obviously, the Terrell Bernard interception. But I do think there were moments where you missed Taylor Rapp, where you missed Von Miller, or you missed Ed Oliver, you missed Austin Johnson, you missed Taron Johnson. I mean, how many times did Houston get Stefon Diggs on Cam Lewis? I thought your fill-ins kind of cost you at times, but collectively, it's hard to be that disappointed with the defensive effort. Let's recap my predictions. I predicted that Stefon Diggs would score a touchdown. That did not happen. I predicted a career high in receiving yards for Keon Coleman, which means he needed to get 52 yards. He got 49 yards on the one catch that he had. Maybe if he sees the ball that hit him on the head, he would have got the 52 yards I predicted he would have. I predicted that Josh Allen's sacks and turnovers are lower than C.J. Stroud's. I was correct about that. Josh Allen was sacked 1 time. He didn't turn over the ball. Stroud was sacked 1 time and turned over the ball twice. So Josh Allen wins that battle. I think I saw a stat that this is the first time in Josh Allen's career where the Bills win the turnover battle 2-0 and lose the game. Come on, you should win that game every time. I said that this would be the most rushing yards of the season for the Bills. That happened. 150 rushing yards, beats 130 they had against Arizona. I predicted the Bills would win. They did not. So the Bills are now 14-5 coming off a loss since 2020. What's next for the Bills? Next 4 games. Monday Night Football at the Jets. Jets lost in London to the Vikings. They come back. They chose not to have their bye week. They're going to host the Bills on Monday Night Football. Game that feels like the Bills need to have. Then you get the Titans at home. So the 3-game road stretch here of at Baltimore, at Houston, at the Jets is going to come to an end after next week. Well, the Bills dropped the first 2. Well, you need to get this one, right? Then you go at Seattle, and you get the Dolphins back in Orchard Park. Why can't you win all 4 of those games? The problem is you should beat all 4 of those teams, but this team has to earn the benefit of the doubt, right? And they haven't told us that yet, especially coming off of these 2 stinkers in a row. What's next for this podcast? Of course, the All-22 review. We'll dive into the tape. We'll see if my suspicions were correct about not being able to win one-on-one battles with receivers. I want to see what other parts of the game plan were poor. I want to kind of look more at the rookies that played on defense. There's a lot to get into with the All-22 review. Herd mentality. Then we'll start getting ready for the Jets on Monday Night Football. All right, folks. Bills dropped 2 in a row. Doesn't feel good. I like the fight that this team showed in the second half, but there's plenty to be concerned about. And the question is, are they fatal flaws, or is there a path to overcome some of this? Now, I feel good about guys getting experience and the team kind of figuring itself out and who they are. Yeah, I thought the defense really kind of answered the call. There's some things about the offense that I like, but this passing game, and do they have enough at receiver? It doesn't feel good. It does not feel good right now. So we'll see. I mean, is it on one hand, is it 5 games with a new receiver core? Is that part of it? Or are they just not good enough? Feels a little bit more like that. And obviously, I don't want to overlook that Khalil Shakir wasn't available for this game because I think he matters. I said in the Bills herd mentality Discord, I said I think the most important offensive skill player on this team is Khalil Shakir. So I'm certainly mindful of that. But that also doesn't take away from where we started this conversation. What were you doing, Sean McDermott, at the end of that game? All right, folks, that's it for us here today on the podcast. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills. I look forward to catching up with you again real soon.